Welcome to part 10 of Conscious Creation in the Intelligent Observer. At the end of the last lecture, I made a confession that an honest teacher cannot avoid. The very practices that can transform you can also be used to deceive you. A person can meditate and visualize and affirm and feel deeply spiritual, while quietly dodging the real changes their life is asking for. Practice can become the most comfortable hiding place of all. So, this lecture is the immune system of everything we have built. These are the checks and balances that keep your conscious creation real, rather than letting it slowly become a pleasant story you tell yourself while nothing actually changes. And notice that this lecture is the channel keeping its own promise. We said this would be about truth and clarity. Truth means turning that honest gaze even onto our own practice, especially onto our own practice. Let me name the central danger plainly, because once you can see it, you can catch it. It is the gap between feeling spiritual and being transformed. These are not the same thing, and they can drift very far apart. You can have a wonderful meditation and walk straight out of it to snap at the people you love. You can fill a journal with beautiful intentions and never take a single hard action. You can learn all the right words, awareness, alignment, leverage, surrender, and use them to sound wise, while your actual life stays exactly where it was. The feeling of growth is not growth. The vocabulary of growth is not growth. And the trap is that the feeling and the vocabulary are pleasant, so we settle for them and mistake them for the real thing, which gives us the first and most important check. Measure yourself by changed behavior, not by changed feelings and not by changed words. This is the one honest test. Do not ask, do I feel more enlightened? Ask, am I actually behaving differently? Are the people who live with me experiencing a calmer, kinder person, or only hearing me talk about calm and kindness? Is the recurring problem I have been working on actually getting smaller in the real world? Or have I just gotten better at describing it? This is exactly what the weekly review we built is for. It is not a moment to congratulate yourself. It is a mirror you hold up to ask, what actually changed this week in my conduct, not in my mood? Behavior is the truth teller. Everything else can be faked, even to yourself. Now let me give you the second check, and this one is subtle and powerful. Almost every beautiful principle we have learned has a counterfeit twin, a shadow version that looks almost identical, but quietly destroys the very thing it imitates. Learn to spot the counterfeits, because this is where sincere people get lost. Consider acceptance. We taught that the present moment is inevitable, that arguing with what already is the purest form of losing. That is true, and it is liberating. But acceptance has a counterfeit, and its name is passivity. The counterfeit says, this is just how things are, so I will do nothing. But remember the precise teaching. This moment is inevitable. The next moment is not. Real acceptance makes peace with what has already happened and then acts with full energy on what comes next. The counterfeit uses the word acceptance to excuse a life of resignation. So the check is to ask yourself, am I truly accepting what I cannot change? Or am I using the language of acceptance to avoid an action I could take right now? Consider surrender, the practice of holding your goal firmly while releasing your desperate grip of not digging up the seed to check if it is growing. That is wisdom. But surrender has a counterfeit too, and it is plain laziness wearing spiritual robes. You still have to plant the seed. You still have to water it. Letting go of the outcome was never permission to abandon the effort. So the check is, am I trusting the process after doing my part? Or am I using the word trust to avoid doing my part at all? Consider responsibility, which we call the doorway to all your power. Its counterfeit is the very thing we warned against, self-blame. If your practice of taking responsibility is leaving you stronger and freer and more able to act, it is the real thing. If it is leaving you ashamed and crushed and small, it is curdled into blame, and you must catch it. So the check is my ownership making me more capable or just more guilty? Consider positivity, the practice of speaking well to yourself and giving thanks. Its counterfeit is suppression. Forcing a bright smile over a real grief, burying a true emotion under a layer of good vibes is not alignment. We learned that you cannot do anything with your mind by force, and pretending to be fine is just force in a cheerful mask. Real positivity feels the difficult emotion fully, lets it move through, and then chooses its response. The counterfeit slams the lid on the feeling and calls it peace. So the check is, am I actually feeling and processing this, or am I performing positivity to avoid it? And consider intention itself, the heart of conscious creation. Its counterfeit is pure wishing. Sitting in visualization while taking no action in the world is not creating. It is daydreaming. So the check is, am I matching my inner work with real outer action? Or have I quietly decided that thinking about it is enough? Now the third check, and this one guards against the most flattering trap of all, the spiritual ego. There's a strange thing that can happen on this path. A person grows a little, and instead of becoming humbler, they become superior. They start using the teachings as a measuring stick to judge everyone around them. They become preachy, subtly condescending, secretly pleased at how much more awake they are than the people in their life. Hear this clearly, because it is one of the surest signs that something has gone wrong. Growth that makes you feel above other people is not growth. It is the ego that has simply put on spiritual clothing, which is more dangerous than ordinary ego because it hides behind virtue. The real test of depth is the opposite of superiority. True growth makes you gentler, humbler, more patient with the people who are struggling because you remember your own struggle. Easier to be around, not harder. So the check is simple and merciless. Am I becoming kinder and more humble, or am I becoming someone who quietly looks down on others? If the teachings are making you harder to live with, you have taken a wrong turn somewhere, no matter how enlightened you feel. The fourth check follows from a hard fact about all of this. Self-deception is nearly invisible from the inside. That is what makes it self-deception. You cannot fully audit yourself with the very mind that is doing the fooling. So you need outside mirrors. You need a few honest people in your life who are allowed to tell you the truth. A trusted friend, a mentor, a partner who loves you enough to say, actually, you are not as changed as you think, or you have been hiding in your practice lately. This is uncomfortable, which is exactly why it is valuable. Do not run your inner life in a sealed room with no windows. The people who grow the most are not the ones with the most private discipline. They are the ones humble enough to let a few trusted others show them the blind spots they cannot see alone. And there is a fifth check that I consider one of the most important things I will say in this entire series, because leaving it out would be irresponsible. Know the limits of self-practice. Everything we have built is powerful, but it is not a cure for everything, and it was never meant to be. If you are carrying a real depression, that will not lift. If you are living with the weight of old trauma, if you find yourself in a genuine crisis, then the wisest and strongest thing you can possibly do is reach out for real help. To a doctor, to a trained therapist, to a trusted person who can walk with you. That is not a failure of your practice. That is the highest application of it, because it is the honest recognition of what this moment actually requires. A morning routine cannot replace medical care, and pretending it can is not spirituality, it is danger. The truly conscious person knows the difference between what they can work on alone and what they need support for, and they have the humility to ask. Please carry that with you. So let me gather these safeguards into a handful of honest questions you can return to, especially in your weekly review. Am I changing my behavior or only my vocabulary and my feelings? Am I using acceptance to make peace or to avoid action I could take? Am I trusting after effort or using trust to escape effort? Is my sense of responsibility making me stronger or just ashamed? Am I feeling my real emotions or burying them under forced positivity? Am I matching my inner work with outer action? Am I becoming gentler and humbler or quietly superior? Do I have honest mirrors in my life, or am I hiding in a sealed room? And do I know what I can work on alone and what I need real help for? Run those questions honestly, and you will catch the drift before it becomes a way of life. This is what keeps conscious creation real. Not blind belief and not constant doubt either, but honesty. The willingness to keep checking whether the practice is actually working in the only place that matters, which is your real life and the real people in it. A practice without these checks slowly becomes a comfortable illusion. A practice with them stays alive, grounded, and true. We have now walked the entire path. We saw our nature, gathered the timeless tools, built awareness, claimed responsibility, aligned ourselves, learned to think in systems, designed our world, assembled a daily practice, and installed the safeguards that keep it all honest. In the final lecture, I am going to gather this whole journey into one clear summary, and then hand you a short, simple guide that you can hold in your palm and carry into the rest of your life. Everything we have built distilled down to what you can begin tomorrow morning. And that is where we go in the last part. Please subscribe for more of such well-researched intellectual sharing.